Can't tell me nothing no more.
Sal Mineo.
In 1958, Sal Mineo was one of the most popular teen film stars in Hollywood. 18 years later, the 37-year-old actor, practically forgotten and desperate for a comeback, was murdered just off the Sunset Strip.
Tragically, Sal's career was truncated by violence.
On this episode of Mysteries and Scandals, we'll piece together the bloody events on the night of February 12, 1976.
I got a call around 10 that something had happened.
We heard these horrible screams, and he was saying, help me, please help me. It was such a desperate plea.
A phone call came in from West Hollywood Station that there had been a murder, body found in an alley of Sal Mineo.
We'll hear from the district attorney who tried the Mineo murder case.
I was put in the unusual position of arguing against eyewitness testimony.
And we'll have an exclusive interview with the man the DA fingered as the murderer.
No, I did not kill Sal Mineo.
Plus, for the first time since Sal's death, members of the Mineo family speak out.
When this happened, we were just devastated.
I had buried Sal in that grave right alongside my father's.
I'm A.J. Benza. Join me as we take a look back at Sal Mineo. Sudden fame, sudden death. In interviews, Sal Mineo portrayed himself as a street-tough delinquent, similar to the characters he often played on film. But nothing could be farther from the truth, according to Sal's sister Serena and brother Victor.
My brother Sal was never in trouble with the law.
If I had to find one word to describe him, was this very gentle person.
Gentle Sal's rags to riches to rags story began in 1931 when his father, Salvatore Sr., immigrated from Italy to America.
He came as a young man, about 17 years old, and started his quest for becoming a citizen, and met my mother, Josephine Alvisi.
Salvatore and Josephine were both 19 when they were married on February 12, 1933. Mrs. Mineo was the dominating force of the household and the perfect stage mother for her starstruck, spotlight-loving son, Sal.
I know it's corny, but we were actually outside in front of our home, and a talent scout came up to Sal and myself. He said, how would you like to learn how to sing and dance?
I would sit in the living room and listen to him practicing and for hours. And it was just amazing how he was so devoted to it.
Sal's devotion paid off. In 1951, by age 11, Salvatore Jr. was performing on Broadway in Tennessee Williams' drama The Rose Tattoo. Laurie Jacobson is the author of Hollywood Heartbreak.
Sal, from the very beginning, was such a comer. And on Broadway, and many people don't know that he was Yul Brynner's son in The King and I. He was the crown prince.
I had no idea how special that was to be doing a show on Broadway with such wonderful actors, and Yul Brynner and Gertrude Lawrence.
Sal's success on stage led to work in television.
Jose, venga tu madre pronto! Ma, speak English. You're embarrassing me. You ever been here before?
I get colds all the time.
Nothing's wrong with yours truly. I'm strong.
Yes.
Jose, come here, please. What's wrong with you?
Nothing's wrong with me. Jose Garcia is strong like a bull. Look. You big bazooka.
Hollywood soon took notice of the talented youngster, and in 1955, 15-year-old Sal was cast in a trio of films including Mineo's most celebrated role. Plato and Rebel Without a Cause earned Sal his first Academy Award nomination as Best Supporting Actor at the age of 16. Peter Bogdanovich.
Well, I think Rebel Without a Cause was certainly a seminal film in the what you could call the sexual and child revolution of the 50s and 60s, and it was made to seem more important because of Jimmy Dean's accidental death, a lot of the popularity that Jimmy would have enjoyed, I think, moved over to Sal.
Sal Mineo's longtime agent, Tom Corman.
I guess Sal, 57, must have been, what, 16? 17, somewhere like that. And he was just emerging, and he was very special, and he was very hot.
And for a while, the hits continued. The 1956 reform school melodrama Dino earned Sal an Emmy nomination and was released as a feature film in 1957. At 16, Sal made another splash with the TV musical special Aladdin.
Couldn't physically cast it better, and he was wonderful. He had the sparkle, he had the twinkle.
Yeah, who wouldn't twinkle for the piece of change Sal took home?
$100,000, which was outrageous. They just screamed and yelled and like stuffed pigs, but it didn't matter. We had the goods.
In 1958, Sal had a brief fling with musical stardom. He released a solo album and a hit single. Mineo also landed the starring role in the bioflic about legendary jazz drummer Gene Krupa.
You hear that, Papa? You boys got the train again. Go, Gene, go!
Just to show you how popular Sal Mineo was at the peak of his career, Bob Hope once joked that all the schools in the Bronx will be closed today because it's Sal Mineo's birthday. He was huge.
Well, you know what they say, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. And today, most people think Sal Mineo is what you get from eating bad chicken. Just ahead, the dawning of the age of Aquarius and the beginning of the end for the teen sensation the press nicknamed the Switchblade Kid. In the 1950s, Bronx-born actor Sal Mineo had more fan clubs than Elvis Presley. He'd been nominated for both an Oscar and an Emmy. And in January of 1960, Mineo was also featured on the cover of Life magazine. 1960 also marked the year of Sal's last major movie, Exodus.
He was nominated for an Oscar for his role in Exodus as a young Israeli soldier. The film Exodus is a real turning point for Sal. It was the peak of his career and really signaled the end of his career.
4 years and several box office bombs later, Mineo signed on for a supporting role in the John Ford Western, Cheyenne Autumn. On location, Sal met visiting journalist Peter Bogdanovich.
So I had no idea what Sal Mineo was like. At the time, I had probably a kind of prejudice against Sal, because I thought of him as a teenage star, as only did teenage pictures. And that hurt Sal in his career at that time, that he was a passé teenage idol.
Mineo suffered another setback when he starred in 1965 psychosexual thriller Who Killed Teddy Bear?
This was his first foray into independent movies. It was a provocative movie. I remember we put Elaine Stritch into the movie.
I was a lesbian owner of a disco who fell in love with Juliet Prowse and got strangled on 93rd and East End Avenue with the Silk Stocking by Sal Mineo. Now, who's not going to play that part? That's a great part.
In 1969, 30-year-old Sal Mineo made the bold decision to direct and star in the homoerotic stage production of Fortune in Men's Eyes.
It was very controversial. It involved nudity, it involved homosexuality.
Sal loved to shock people and make people gasp.
Audiences were certainly gasping over Sal's 18-year-old co-star.
Found a young boy who was from Kansas, who had a great look, named Don Johnson.
Since his teen years, there had been a lot of whispering that Sal was gay or bisexual. Once he did Fortune, no one was whispering anymore.
Sal was not ashamed that he was gay. It was within the industry known, and it was fine. It didn't affect anybody.
When I heard that Sal Mineo was gay, I said, oh, what a shame for all the young women in the whole wide world. He was very attractive.
For the next few years, Sal struggled to find work, but in February of 1976, he was on the verge of a comeback. He triumphed in a play in San Francisco and was in final rehearsals for the Los Angeles engagement. Sal was a player once again, or so he thought. Fate had other plans for Mr. Mineo. Michael Genelin was the prosecuting attorney in the Sal Mineo murder case.
He was rehearsing for this play on the night that he was killed, a play called P.S. Your Cat is Dead. Ironic, the title, but he drove into his carport behind his apartment building, got out of the car, and we know he was confronted by someone.
Mineo's neighbor in 1976, P.K. Strong.
Suddenly, we heard these blood-curdling screams, and he was saying, help me, please help me. We both ran out there, and here is Sal, just lying on the ground. So I put Sal's head in my lap, and he was just as pale as the concrete. He was moaning and kind of tossing his head back and forth, and I kept saying, please, Sal, it's okay. You're gonna be okay.
Sal's agent got a frantic call from Mineo's building manager.
And I got a call around 10 that something serious had happened. He said that Sal had been stabbed and he didn't know if he was alive. But could I come over right away?
I just really felt him relax in my lap. He died before the paramedics ever got there. I mean, I just felt him die right there.
Dan Tankersley was the homicide investigator assigned to the Sal Mineo case.
The phone call came in from West Hollywood Station that there had been a murder, body found in an alley.
Mineo had been stabbed once in the chest, penetrating the heart, which killed him.
We got there, and we told them who we were, and they just showed us the body. We identified it, and that was it.
Actually, it was the beginning of a long and troubled investigation. Just ahead, what role did Mineo's sexuality play in his death? Were drugs involved? And was the wrong man arrested in the stabbing death of Sal Mineo? Sensation, Sal Mineo was murdered in an alley behind his West Hollywood apartment on February 12, 1976. Eyewitnesses claim they saw a tall young man with long blonde hair fleeing the crime scene. Now, it was pretty well known that 37-year-old Mineo was gay, so right away rumors began that Sal was killed by a disgruntled boyfriend.
He was very accessible, unfortunately too accessible. He let too many people get into his life that shouldn't have gotten into his life.
We thought that it was probably a crime of passion.
There's clubs that cater to homosexuals. We sent undercover people in. We even had people hypnotized. All those interviews turned to nothing.
So what about the blonde guy seen near the crime scene?
Witnesses often have differences in descriptions of the suspect, even though they see the same person. So that blonde individual we could never locate.
Another rumor on the street was that Mineo was killed over drugs.
Well, if he was dealing drugs, he was the poorest drug dealer in America.
We spent weeks sometimes tracking down a rumor, what turned out to be just a rumor. And some of them were involved in narcotics.
More than 2 years after Mineo was murdered, a suspect was finally taken into custody. But instead of a tall young man with long blonde hair, police arrested a black 21-year-old short guy with an afro and a record a mile long. His name was Lionel Ray Williams. And ironically, the police had interviewed Williams shortly after the murder.
I received a phone call that he had a suspect that had been arrested for robbery, and he wanted to give information on the murder of Sal Mineo. And he told us at the time that Sal had been killed as a result of a dope negotiation. We let him loose with the proviso that he'd get better information and come back to us.
But the next time LA authorities heard about Williams was when they were contacted by prison officials in Michigan.
He was in prison in Michigan for forgery.
A whole lot of bad checks. Quite a bit of money.
One of the prison guards had overheard Williams tell another inmate that he had killed Mineo.
I did not confess to anybody that I killed anybody.
His wife,
Teresa Williams, contacted a district attorney's investigator.
That's all crap. That's not true. Police went to her. She had a prostitution case and was going to take my kids from her. I drove her to the point where she put a bullet in her head. She tried to kill herself. The police were making her lie against her husband and that she don't want to live anymore.
Lionel Ray Williams is an arrogant man. I think that to this day he thinks in some way that he is going to be able to convince people that he didn't do this.
When will the conspiracy end? You know, when I'm dead?
Nope. The gig's up right after the break. A surprise twist, a confession, and the final verdict in the mystery of who killed Sal Mineo. After the slaying of 37-year-old actor Sal Mineo, convicted felon Lionel Ray Williams was charged with murder. On January 12, 1979, Williams faced a jury of his peers.
All the jurors were white, and they were from like, I say 35 to maybe 70 years old.
They needed somebody to try the case. They said, Mr. Gentleman, you're a senior trial lawyer, earn your pay. I did what any trial lawyer would do. I prepared. Lionel Ray Williams had committed a whole series of robberies. We proved that he had committed a robbery half a mile to 3/4 of a mile from where Mineo was killed, within probably 30 minutes of killing Mineo.
Michael Gillen is a professional liar. He's an attorney, and you know, he trains himself to be a liar so he can get people convicted.
We'll let you determine who's lying here. The next piece of evidence was a car seen leaving the crime scene.
The killer was seen to run down the alleyway to the street east of where the killing took place. He jumped into a yellow automobile and drove off.
Williams admits he was driving a yellow rental car, but claims he wasn't anywhere near the crime scene that night.
Small yellow car, it broke down. I had that car towed back to O'Connor Lincoln on the 13th.
Although the murder weapon was never found, tests were performed to determine what kind of knife was used in the killing. Williams had a very curious tattoo on his arm.
He had tattooed on his arm a knife, not a kitchen knife. It would be something you take with you if you went hunting. We had the replica of that knife tattooed on his hand, on his arm. There it was.
That's another lie that they put down. It's saying that I tattooed the same knife that was used in the Mineo murder.
During the trial, several witnesses testified that Williams admitted to murdering Sal Mineo, a simple case of an attempted robbery gone bad.
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. The officers, they told him exactly what to say.
What was confusing at the trial and still causes speculation is the testimony of eyewitnesses who saw a white man at the scene of the crime.
I don't look like I'm white, do I?
We had three very different descriptions in my closing argument. I said, I cannot draw a complete picture of the face of Lionel Ray Williams. But what you can do is, using the dots as pieces of evidence, you can connect enough of the pieces of evidence so that you draw enough of the face so you can say, that's the murderer.
And the jury agreed with the prosecution. 3 years and 1 day after the murder of Sal Mineo, Williams was found guilty of 10 counts of robbery and 1 count of second-degree murder. He was sentenced to 51 years to life. But just 11 years after he was convicted of killing Sal Mineo, Williams was paroled in July of 1990. And soon after, he was arrested again for a robbery and homicide. And despite all of Williams' excuses and denials, Ray sang a much different tune back when he was taken into custody by Detective John Spreitzer.
Williams had a fictitious driver's license under the name Raymond Williams. I asked Williams why he had the driver's license under the false name, and he indicated that he didn't want to be hassled by the police. And Mr. Williams stated, man, I killed Sal Mineo, that's a hassle.
For Williams, the death of Sal Mineo has been a hassle. For Sal's friends and family, it's been a tremendous loss. The pain is as raw today as it was in 1976. Sal's sister-in-law, Ann Mineo.
Sal was a remarkable brother. Forget in-law. He was a good brother.
He was honest. He was passionate. He was sincere. He liked my jokes.
He had a wonderfully comic side to it. He was a very funny fella. An enormously talented kid, just enormously talented. I was very fond of him. Interesting, individualistic in every way. He's darling, just darling.
There were very few people who had that kind of presence, and he had it. He had it.
As a friend, he's irreplaceable. I miss him all the time.
Mineo's funeral was held on February 17, 1976 at the Catholic Church near the New York estate Sal purchased for his mom 20 years earlier. Fans, friends, and family joined together to pay their final respects.
My brother Sal Mineo, a rare, very special person. A gentleman whose sensitivity and understanding affected everyone he met. Those who loved him knew that he loved life and that he lived his life with courage, with abandon, with humor, and with grace. I will miss you, Sal. God bless.
During his short life, Sal always said his success was due to the fact he was in the right place at the right time. Little did Mineo know that his life would end because he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. High above Hollywood, I'm A.J. Benzo.